The film begins with a news reporter and her cameraman investigating a crime scene in an abandoned mill, but they are attacked by a disfigured man. The story then goes back 3 days earlier, where a group of college students on a road trip run into two hillbillies, Tucker and Dail. There is a misunderstanding, and the college students become frightened by them, but they are actually harmless. The group continues on their trip, while Tucker and Dail head to their new vacation home in the woods. Along the way, they are stopped by a cop who warns them to stay away from the woods as dangerous things happen there. The two friends arrive at their old cabin. Inside, they find bones hanging from the ceiling and newspaper clippings on the wall, all connected to the Memorial Day massacre. The cabin falls apart, and as Tucker leans on a pillar, it creaks and a wooden beam with nails on the end falls down, but Dail saves him. Meanwhile, the group of college students sets up camp nearby, and Chad tells them a scary story about the Memorial Day massacre. The tension is broken when Mike suggests skinny dipping, and the group agrees. Allison hears a noise and sees Chad scaring her with an axe. Chad confesses that he's glad that they can spend time together before trying to kiss her, but she pushes him away and leaves. The college students go for a swim in the lake, catching the attention of Tucker and Dail. Allison climbs up on a rock and falls in the lake, hitting her head and becoming unconscious. Tucker and Dail save her, but are mistaken by the other students as kidnappers. The next morning, Allison wakes up in Tucker and Dail's cabin, frightened by the sight of the bones and the dog. Meanwhile, the other students are discussing what they saw and considering calling the police. Chuck volunteers to find help, and Chad agrees reluctantly. The college students approach Tucker and Dail's cabin and are afraid to knock on the door, except for Mitchell, who is also scared but suggests they should try. Meanwhile, Dail and Allison have a conversation where Dail explains that her friends ran off and suggests they play a board game called Trivia. Later, Mitchell approaches the cabin, and in the meantime, Tucker accidentally cuts through a beehive with a chainsaw, which prompts him to run away from the bees. Mitchell thinks Tucker is chasing him and runs into a tree branch while Tucker continues to run. In the cabin, Allison and Dail play Trivia and discuss their dreams and goals. Meanwhile, the college students find Mitchell's body and mistake Tucker and Dail's actions as hostile. Dail leaves a message for the students, which they misinterpret, so they return to the cabin to attack Tucker and Dail to save their friend. Allison volunteers to help Dail dig a hole, and the college students mistake it as her digging her own grave. They split up and attack, but Todd accidentally falls onto his own spear while attacking Dail, and Dail accidentally knocks Allison unconscious with a shovel. Mike attempts to stab Tucker from behind, but ends up falling into the wood chipper instead. Tucker tries to save him but fails. Tucker and Dail later panic, believing that the college students are part of a suicide pact and start to hide sharp objects. Meanwhile, the college kids regroup and decide to go get help, except for Chad, who wants to continue his survival game. The group hears sirens and Chuck, who is in the cop car, stops when he sees Chloe. Tucker and Dail successfully remove Mike's lower half from the wood chipper, but are then interrogated by the sheriff, who believes they are responsible for the deaths of the college students. Tucker tells the truth and leads the sheriff into their cabin. The sheriff investigates Allison's condition and warns Tucker and Dail that they could be taken in for involuntary manslaughter. He leans on a weak wooden pillar, which collapses and impales him through the head. Still alive, the sheriff lugs to his car and attempts to call for help before falling dead. Chuck spots the sheriff's gun and runs outside to shoot at the two hillbillies, but the gun is not firing. Dail suggests that the safety might still be on, and Chuck accidentally pulls the trigger as he turns off the safety, killing himself. Chad comes in and starts shooting at them, and Tucker and Dail hide inside while arguing. They hear a dog bark outside, and Tucker comes up with a plan to create a distraction while he goes to free their dog Janger. Tucker successfully frees Janger, but is caught by the college kids and is later seen dangling upside down from a tree. Allison wakes up and comforts Dail, who is covered in blood and in shock. Dail tells her that her friends had been killing themselves and then tried to kill Tucker and him, and also tried to kill his dog. Allison initially defends her friends, but then sees the corpses of the sheriff and her friends outside and realizes they have misjudged Dail. Dail decides to go out and save Tucker and before he departs, he asks Allison to tell her friends that he is harmless and never wanted to hurt anybody. Dail goes out into the woods with a machete and comes across puddles of blood and Tucker's hat. He sees Mitchell's body and is startled. Shortly after, he finds Tucker dangling upside down from a tree. As he approaches Tucker, he accidentally sets off a trap, but thankfully only cuts his pants leg. He cuts Tucker down, who comments that their vacation sucks. Allison attempts to mediate a therapy session between Chad and Dail. Chad shares his backstory, revealing that his parents were among the victims of the Memorial Day massacre caused by two hillbillies. Chad's mother was the lone survivor, and she was pregnant with him at the time. She managed to escape, but Chad's father was thrown into an incinerator and burned to death. Chad grew up hearing this story from his grandmother, which instilled a deep hatred and fear of hillbillies in him. Allison attempts to help them see each other's perspective and find a resolution. Jason and Chloe sneak around outside the cabin, planning to charge in if Chad and Naomi don't return in 15 minutes. Allison asks how everyone feels after sharing their stories, and Dail admits he feels better. Suddenly, Jason bursts in with a weed whacker and attacks Tucker, but accidentally mutilates Naomi's face in the process. Chad tries to attack Dail with an axe, but Tucker punches him, causing Chad to throw a lamp at them. Jason catches fire and burns to death after Chloe accidentally douses him with gasoline. The fire spreads quickly and reaches some gas canisters, which then explode. The cabin is destroyed, and the three survivors run to their pickup truck while the injured Chad is still chasing them. Dail drives away, but doesn't look at the road, so he crashes into a tree. Dail wakes up to find Allison missing and his friend Tucker bleeding heavily. Tucker tells Dail that Chad took Allison and urges him to go after her. Dail promises to return for Tucker and sets off with Janger. He finds Allison tied up at an abandoned lumber mill and charges in with a chainsaw to rescue her. Chad attacks Dail, but he manages to free Allison and continue fighting Chad. Dail temporarily defeats Chad by throwing his chainsaw at him. Allison and Dail lock themselves upstairs as Chad pursues them with the chainsaw. Allison discovers an old newspaper revealing that Chad resembles one of the killers of the Memorial Day massacre. Chad attacks Dail, but he shows him the newspaper, causing Chad to become distracted. Dail throws some chamomile tea powder at Chad, causing him to have an asthma attack and fall out the window, presumably dead. Later that night, a squadron of cops investigate the mill. A reporter and her cameraman report on from the scene. Tucker, who is recovering in the hospital, realizes that one of his fingers looks different. Dail and Allison go bowling, while BJ seeks Dail's advice on how to attract women. Dail gives him the same advice that Tucker gave him and directs him to talk to a woman nearby. Dail gives Allison a pink helmet as a gift, and they confess their love for each other. In the background, BJ accidentally knocks out a woman, but Dail and Allison continue kissing. This was Showtime Plus. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until next time.